Hello, everybody. Welcome to Haiku Talk. I'm your host, Ben Ga, your friendly neighborhood haiku poet. Today, in episode 5, we will be taking a look at a poem by Gary Hittmeyer from the latest issue of Modern Haiku. That would be volume 52.3, the autumn 2021 issue. So sit back, relax, and let's haiku. Okay, in episode 5, we have our first Senryu. Episodes 1 through 4, we've focused on haiku, which are poems that deal with nature at large. This poem is a Senryu, which deals with human nature. And again, this poem comes from Gary Hittmeyer from the latest issue of Modern Haiku, and it goes like this. Sailing into childhood, a balsa wood airplane. Sailing into childhood, a balsa wood airplane. Very nice piece. Now, what makes this Senryu instead of haiku? It deals with not something in nature, not a scene that you see or experience, or a moment that you would capture by being out in the world, in the natural world. Instead, this deals with something specific in human nature, and in this case, dealing with memory. And this is a really cool one because I've talked to some people in the past, or had questions to me over the years, asking me, well, how do you deal with things that happen in the past in a haiku or senryu, which has to be focused on the present? Because haiku and senryu both are moments that happen in real time. So they always take place in the present tense, otherwise known as the eternal now, if you want to get esoteric about it. But how do you do that? And this poem by Gary does a fantastic job of showing you just how you go about doing that. And I'll get into that a little bit more as we break down the poem. As always, we will go line by line through this piece and show how it works, why it works, and just keep that in mind. We will be getting to how he uses the past to talk about, or how he uses the present to talk about the past. So that first line, well, again, the whole structure of the poem is the fragment and the phrase structure, as we've talked about in episodes 1 through 4. Senryu is no different from haiku in how it's structured and the way it works. You still use simple, succinct, suggestive language to get your moment across, but you deal with human nature. And sometimes it can be a little funny, sometimes it can be serious. This one is kind of like right in the middle, just a really nice poem that speaks to me quite a bit. So in this case, we have the first two lines are the phrase, which is sailing into childhood, and the fragment is a balsa wood airplane. And the difference between a fragment and a phrase is the fragment is a specific thing, and the phrase is sort of a movement or something else. It's not just one thing. It is a transitional piece. It is a phrase rather than a specific thing. So sailing into childhood is the phrase here. And that's also, again, how this ties into Senryu. Because this has something to do with sailing into childhood, not sailing into a sea or a sunset. So let's break this down line by line. Again, the very first line of this poem is a one-word line. And as I talked about in a previous episode, I really love it when you have one-word lines in a haiku or senryu. It's very exciting, especially when they're done right, as this one is here. So the first line is just that word sailing. And that's awesome. So you got sailing as your first line. And automatically you're drawn into images of what sailing looks like. I think everybody has an idea in their head as to what sailing is it and because there's nothing else going on or nothing else given but that one word, wherever you go in your mind when you hear the word sailing is where immediately the scene is set for you. That's where you go. That's how Gary invites you into this scene. That's how your imagination is piqued. That's how you're lured into this moment. Sailing. Great line. Line 2 tells us more about what sailing is. And it kicks us into an interesting place because usually I'd imagine anybody or everybody when they encounter that first line, they're going to a physical place in the real world. They're going to a place where you see a boat. They're going to some place where you're actually sailing in a very physical, real way. But line 2 takes us somewhere else. It takes us into childhood. So suddenly, line 2 introduces a non-physical location where you are. It takes us out of being in a boat. It takes us out of being wherever you might have physically put yourself as sailing and puts you into this more conceptual place called into childhood. Now, what does that mean exactly? I'm sailing into childhood. What is that? I know for me as a reader, I'm hooked. I want to know where I'm going next because sailing into childhood, what is that? I'm suddenly in this very abstract place. I don't know where I am. My feet aren't firmly planted on the ground someplace. I'm in a conceptual world at this point. And so where do we go from there? So Gary grounds us in line 3 with a very real thing with that fragment, which is a balsa wood airplane. A balsa wood airplane. Now, I don't know about any of you out there, but when I was a kid, I played with balsa wood airplanes. You'd go to the hobby store, you'd pick out your balsa wood airplane kits from the rack, and it would just basically be a couple little pieces of balsa wood, which is very light, and you would have a body and you'd slide in the front wing and the back wing. Sometimes you might have a little rubber band propeller, sometimes you wouldn't. I remember having a biplane one, which was really cool. And so this speaks to something right out of my childhood. I'm right here with Gary. And that may or may not be the case for everybody. Not everybody may know what a balsa wood airplane is. I certainly do. And so this worked really well for me. Now, what's interesting also about this poem is the way that it's structured on the page. The way the lines start with a one word first line, a 2-word second line, and then a 4-word third line. And so if you can see here up on the screen, you will see that the structure of the poem kind of gets longer as you go down the line, as you go through the poem. And this is really evocative of taking you through the actual motion of the poem, of somebody taking the balsa wood airplane and actually throwing it. And so that last line, it kind of builds up, and that last line really takes you to the sailing moment where the plane launches in midair. So what happens in this scene for me, where I go, is that I have gone to a store and bought one of these things that I haven't played with since I was a kid. I've got it all set up, and then I throw it. And in that release, in that sailing of that balsa wood airplane, as an adult, I'm taken right back to my childhood, and I'm feeling like a kid again as I watch this joyful little toy glide through the air. And man, what a moment. What a way to capture that. What a way to bring a little bit of joy from your past, from your days of a childhood, a happy time as being a kid, into your adult life. And it's just a wonderful moment in a spot and a place to be in. So thank you, Gary, for this very much, for this poem, for this piece. Again, and this is how it's why it's Senryu and not haiku, because it deals with a very human nature kind of experience. This is something it's a man-made experience. These little toys, they aren't found in nature. The actual experience of what's happening is tossing this toy through the air. It's not something that happens in nature. It's something that's human-made, and the joy and the response you're getting from this is bringing back the past into the present. It's a very human thing, a human nature thing, and that's why this is a senryu and not a haiku. And I thought it's a great way to start out with the very first senryu in the bunch in these episodes, as one that is kind of happy, not overly cheeky, not overly sentimental. It's just a very nice balanced piece, and it also has that great structure of being short and then ending on a long line. And you see as the plane sails forward, the lines get longer, and you follow that plane right down to that last line. And haiku are very short forms, but you can be playful with how you structure your lines, and they can very much inform and be a part of the reading experience of the poem, just like you see here. And I'm sure over the course of this channel, we will encounter this more and more in different episodes. I'm sure we'll come on some that have very interesting structures. I know we haven't had a one-liner yet, or a two-liner, or a vertical poem, but we'll get there. We'll get there. This is going to wet your whistle a little bit for other actual physical structures in the poem and how they sit on the page. For different possibilities of what you can do with haiku and senryu. So with that, I'll wrap this one up. Nice, short, and sweet. It is raining here in St. Louis as I record this. You can probably hear that in the background. It's kind of a wonderful thing and a nice little artifact to this moment that I'm recording here. It will be forever frozen in the frames. I want to thank you for tuning in. Thank you for dialing us up and actually taking a moment to learn about a haiku or the senryu, and maybe it's just a nice little part of your day. Subscribe, please, and ring the bell to be notified for new chapters new episodes as they come out. Trying to do about one a week, and we'll see how it goes. Got a lot of new journals to read through, and the format here is I usually pick one from a new issue of a new journal as it comes out. Which will expose you to journals, will expose, and this is Modern Haiku. I know it's a senryu, but they publish all sorts of forms in this book, in this journal. It's a very good journal. If you're not subscribing to it or never picked one up, give it a shout. You can go to their website and see example pieces and buy individual issues, or subscribe. Again, thank you very much. Until next time, goodbye.